The Chinese have been trying to take over India for decades, and we have proof. Wondering what I am talking about? Stay till the end, and you will be just as shocked as we were when we found out this truth. Welcome back to Mysteries and Facts, and today we will be talking about the Chinese conspiracy to destroy India. China and India are some of the most popular nations in the world. In the 1900s, India and China had a very cordial relationship and frequently traded together. History shows that trade relations may have existed even much longer than that. After both nations achieved independence, however, the relationship eventually went sour over land and border disputes. The tensions between the two nations escalated in the 1950s, but the rest of the world wouldn't know the full extent of the deterioration of their relationship until the Sino-Indian War of 1962. The tension between the two nations had to do with a border dispute which centered around the Aksai Chin region, in the western Himalayas and Arunachal Pradesh, the northeastern Indian state which China also refers to as South Tibet. There had been an uprising by the Tibetans against the Chinese government in 1959, and many of them fled to India for protection. The Indian government provided them asylum, and this angered the Chinese. It worsened their already strained relationship. Allying with the USA instead of the Soviet Union did little to help matters. In October 1962, the Chinese People's Liberation Army launched a full-scale surprise attack at the disputed border which India was not prepared for. The Indian forces were forced to retreat, but not before suffering heavy casualties. The Liberation Army overran Indian outposts and advanced deep into their territories, capturing many of the Indian territories. This continued for a whole month, until the Chinese forces declared a ceasefire, bringing the war to an end in November 1962. After the declaration of ceasefire, China withdrew most of their forces from the territories they had captured, but retained control over Aksai Chin and other disputed territories in the eastern sector. Naturally, this affected relations between India and China. The disputes didn't end then, and they don't seem to have ended even in these times. Since the Sino-Indian War of 1962, there have been the Nathu La and Chola clashes of 1967, the Sumdarong-Chu standoff of 1987 and the Galwan Valley clash of 2020. In each of these altercations, lives have been lost on both sides. Despite the bad blood between the nations, and India restricting some products and services from China, trade between the countries continues to a large extent. Diplomatic engagements are however still ongoing between the two countries to find a lasting solution to their problems. Sounds like a happy ending, does it not? Well, we don't think so. I mean, we'd love for it to be so, but when dealing with China, there's a need to consider all possibilities. Sometimes, taking control of a country isn't marching in with an army and dominating them. That'll be hard in recent times given all the international laws nations have to abide by. Russia versus Ukraine is a modern and classic example of that. Sometimes, it's best to avoid direct attacks and do so through indirect means. In the case of China, this works by infiltrating institutions like the government and the military. They either plant their own spies in these institutions, or influence those that are already in there to serve them. The sole purpose of this is to gather intelligence and influence the policies of the country, which in this case is India. Getting the leader of the nation is usually the sure way with this tactic. In the case of India, it will require prominent figures like Prime Minister Modi, and the key people in his government to be in bed with China. But if you know anything about the Prime Minister, it's that he is a nationalist, and has India's development at heart. The same can be said about members of his government. He has zero tolerance for corruption, and this is evident throughout his government, and the policies he's made so far. Not only has he shown himself to be a strong leader, and a good administrator, but he's also proven himself to be a man of action and always takes bold steps to achieve his goals. He, and the ruling government have been so consistent in fighting for the good of India, that it's hard to think an external force like China could push them to betray the interests of the Indian people. Does that mean the idea of China infiltrating the government is not viable? Well, not exactly. Members of the ruling party are not the only government officials that can be influenced, there's the opposition too. When we start paying attention to members of the opposition, that's when things start to get sketchy, and we start noticing things that should not be there. While there is no official leader for the opposition in India, Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the Indian National Congress, pretty much unofficially plays the role. As much as I'd love to believe that someone from the prominent Gandhi family has the affairs of India at heart, it doesn't seem to be the case. First off, Rahul seems to secretly be meeting leaders from other countries and signing secret documents with them. The India Times reported that Rahul met with Chinese leaders to sign a memorandum of understanding which no one knew about, and up till now no one knows its content. This MOU with the Communist Party of China was signed as far back as 2008. Although, Rahul does not seem to be interested in making the contents of the MOU known, his Congress party and the CCP seem to have built a relationship that even predates him. The relationship can be traced as far back as Nehru's famous Hindi Chini Bye Bye, but as we all know, the result of that was the Sino-Indian War. For some odd reason, Nehru, who was then associated with the Indian National Congress, was always speaking for and taking action in favor of China, just like Rahul. Unlike Rahul, who is secretive about his actions, Nehru was very public and bold about his relationship with China. He even refused a seat at the UN Security Council for India because of China. He famously uttered the statement, "not at the cost of China." Today, however, China is part of the permanent members of the UN Security Council and India remains a non-permanent member. As if that was not bad enough, he sent rice to the Liberation Army of China, right before they invaded Tibet. He knew the US, which was shaping up to be an ally of India, was training the Tibetans for defense, yet he ignored that and sent the Chinese army food, which is indirectly empowering them for battle. He basically handed Oxy Chin to China, which left the northern Indian borders at the mercy of the deadly hegemonic regime. Could the Congress Party have secretly been working with China back then? In recent times, 2017 to be specific, Rahul secretly met the Chinese ambassador to India. Congress was queried about this and they outrightly denied that such a meeting ever occurred. Unfortunately for them though, a photograph was released on the Chinese embassy website which showed that the meeting did indeed occur. As though that was not enough, another photo was released of the entire Gandhi Vadra family being hosted by the Chinese at the Olympics. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to know things aren't adding up. A picture of Rahul Gandhi meeting the then Chinese Vice President Xi Jinping, concerning the MOU signed in 2008, was released, or rather, tweeted by senior advocate Mahesh Jetmalani, 3 years after. The tweet, dated June 21, 2020, shows an agreement being signed by a minister in the International Department of the Communist Party of China, in the presence of Xi Jinping, and another member of the Gandhi family, Sonia. The then Congress leader, Anand Sharma, was also part of the Indian delegation present. Guess where this document was signed? The Great Hall. If you know anything about the Chinese, it's that everything they do has symbolic meaning, including where events are held, and when they are held. The Great Hall, where the documents were being signed, is only used for official things and not unofficial ones. This begs the question, what did the Indian delegation sign with China, that no one in the Indian government and India as a whole is aware of? There are some who believe that Indian secrets were shared with the Chinese. Some also believe that important information and files were shared with Sonia under UPA rule, and that she was actually the one calling the shots from behind the scene. If that's the case, it's no surprise that she was present for the signing of the MOU, whatever its contents were. Was the then UPA government a pawn of the Chinese? That might sound like a stretch, but when you look at what happened during the tenure of the UPA, it's not hard to believe. During the tenure of the UPA, the Tia Pang Naik and Shabji Valley, 250 kilometers, in Chumar area were taken by the Chinese. The Zora War Fort in Deemjok was also destroyed by PLA with no true repercussions. Within the same period, specifically, 2008 to 2009, India lost the Doom Kili, an ancient trade point, between Dungti and Deemjok, and these continued even till 2012, when the PLA set up an observing point and created the Chinese New Deemjok colony, with 13 cemented houses. As you can see, the secret collaboration in China did not start with Rahul. He is just the face of this generation. But, is he currently the only one? Well, not exactly. Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury, the Congress leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, made a tweet warning Beijing to be careful, as the Indian army knows how to defang venomous snakes, during one of the skirmishes at the Indian border. As patriotic as this tweet might seem, it was soon deleted. But, why? It turns out he was told, "Madam is angry with the tweet, delete it." Hearing that, he deleted the tweet. Who is this madam? I guess we all should know by this point. Not only did he delete the tweet, but he's even tweeted things in support of China since then. In May 2020, he tweeted, "The Indian National Congress recognizes and values the special strategic partnership between India and China. As two ancient civilizations and large economies of the world, both countries are destined to make significant contributions in the 21st century." This is a sharp U-turn from what he had written earlier, and he didn't even change or delete it when India lost 20 bravehearts to the Chinese. Clearly, this should make it evident that the higher-ups and leaders of the Indian National Congress have something going on with China. Whatever the arrangement is, it seems Rahul Gandhi is merely the face continuing the tradition. If you are enjoying this video and haven't hit the like and subscribe buttons already, this will be a good time to do so. Coming back to the subject, unlike his predecessors, however, he seems to be expanding and dealing with individuals other than China. Recently, he's met with US high-ranking officials, including a secret meeting with Joe Biden, which no one knows the purpose of. Aside from these secret meetings, he's also held public meetings in the USA under questionable circumstances and with questionable groups, supporting him. One of the questionable groups associated with his meetings in the West is the head of the AICC, Satyanarayan Gangaram Petroda, popularly known as Sam Petroda. His ties with the Gandhi family go way back. Through his connections, Rahul has enlisted the support of anti-India and anti-nationalist groups, including Islamists, Khalistanis, Neo-Ambedkarites, and Dravidian fanatics, in his visits to the US. If you know anything about any of these groups, you'd know none are good news for India. They are basically pushing for the Balkanization of India. Some of these groups are also known for giving weekly warnings about an impending genocide of Muslims in India. They are also not just known to be anti-Modi, but anti-India as well, based on content in their briefings for congressional staffers. For anyone in India, this might just be hard to believe, because Rahul usually looks like the funny and relatable congressman, but once he's out of the country, the persona changes and he suddenly sounds like a dangerous man you should be avoiding. But why? Why is he doing this? Why would he put the whole country at such risk? Having been out of power for up to 9 straight years can do that to a man. Based on the Prime Minister's performance, 2024 does not look promising for Rahul either. This might be the reason he is aligning himself with anyone and all who are willing to partner with him irrespective of their outfits, whether they are anti-BJP or anti-India. He's even met Orhana Watrami, who is associated with a sex racket cartel and drug trafficking. This is definitely a sign of desperation. Rahul is even known to use words and terminologies from George Soros, claiming that democracy is in danger in India, as well as minorities are being selectively targeted. He's even stated that democratic institutions are in danger, and press freedom is sliding. He's making these proclamations to the West to win sympathy and an alliance, but by doing so, he is essentially making himself their pawn, and putting India at their mercy. He's basically destroying the nation from within. In trying to checkmate Modi, he's essentially checkmating India too. Whatever the case, he is certainly putting India at risk and delivering the whole nation to the hands of individuals who are bent on destroying the nation for their own selfish gain. Is Rahul and the Gandhi family the only means through which China is infiltrating India? Well, not exactly. We have anti-nationalists to worry about. There's enough evidence to support the assertion that China and Pakistan are backing the Khalistan radicals in India. Gurcharan Singh, their leader, confessed to having growing ties to China in an undercover footage from a sting operation back in 2018. Beyond that, Dal Khalsa had also stated that they had set up offices in China, and had great support for China's goal of annexing Sikkim in northeastern India, which will help China's plans of taking over India's territory in the Himalayan region. Given the fact that the group was started by Manmohan Singh Khalsa, whose radical views of India form the foundation of the movement, it's not too surprising. MSK was supported by ISI as well. Pakistan openly supports Khalistan, and its leadership's open praise for Chinese aggression. China has also supported Khalistan in the past, but their relationship seems to be evolving from a junior role to a more active role. Singh's actions are escalating in the UK recently, and it's not hard to see who is pulling the strings. It therefore should be no surprise if China is behind Khalistan actions in India, ranging from the attacks to hijacking protests, including the recent one involving farmers, where those who infiltrated the protests were shouting anti-nationalist slogans. China's support of Khalistan is a growing counterterrorism and counterintelligence threat, and Pakistan is definitely the enabler. China has even been linked with some violent attacks in mainland India. The most recent of these is the Manipur riots, which claimed the lives of hundreds of individuals and displaced thousands more. China is alleged to be behind these attacks with the sole aim of destabilizing India by supporting and aiding the riots. With the region destabilized, China can then swoop in and take advantage of the natural resources in Manipur. It won't be the first time China is supporting a separatist movement in another country. Tibet, Hong Kong and Xinjiang are all examples of areas where this has happened. As long as China has a strategic interest in an area, it won't hesitate to try and gain control over the area. It's no secret that China is on a mission of world domination, and having direct or indirect political and economic control of India will give them an edge in their campaign. Economically, India's population size presents China with a large market for its goods and services at a lower cost and within a short distance. Beyond this, the country is rich in all kinds of natural resources such as coal, iron, natural gas, and many more, which will fuel China's growing economy and ambitions. Taking control of India also gives China control over important sea and air routes. Are you getting the picture? China isn't just after India just for the sake of it. India has so much to offer the world, and the Chinese see that. If only our leaders and the individuals supporting them could see that potential, as well, and decide to do what's best for India, we could become one of the superpowers in the world. But what do you think? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. While you are at it, do not forget to like this video, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We have more conspiracies coming in our next video, and you wouldn't want to miss it. See you in the next one.